Some betrayals don't come from enemies. They come from the people who smile at you, who call you friend, who pretend to cheer when you succeed until they start wanting what you have. For Emily Davis, success hadn't come easy. She worked her way up from a receptionist to regional manager in a company that never believed a woman like her could make it that far. She stayed late, learned every skill, and earned every bit of respect she got. But with every promotion, one person's smile faded just a little more. Her co-worker and supposed best friend, Rachel Monroe. Rachel was charming, funny, and competitive in ways that seemed harmless. Until the day Emily got the promotion Rachel thought should have been hers. That's when the whispers started. Emails were accidentally forwarded. Rumors spread. And then came the lie that nearly destroyed everything Emily had built. Rachel accused her of embezzlement, claiming Emily had been stealing company funds. With one false report, Emily's reputation collapsed. HR suspended her. Friends stopped calling. Even her family questioned her. Overnight, she went from rising star to corporate outcast. But what Rachel didn't know was that Emily wasn't the type to break. She was the type to rebuild. And when the truth came to light, karma didn't just knock on Rachel's door. It kicked it open. Stay until the end, because this isn't just a story about betrayal. It's a story about strength, justice, and the quiet power of truth. And if you believe that no matter how unfair life seems, truth always finds its way, subscribe. Because here on Justice Found, every story proves that karma never misses. The promotion announcement had felt like the start of something new. The whole office clapped when Emily's name was called, her smile wide but modest, as the regional director shook her hand. It was a moment she had worked toward for nearly 8 years. Late nights, extra shifts, and the constant struggle to prove herself in a company that had never really believed in her. Across the room, Rachel Monroe was the first to hug her. "I'm so proud of you," she whispered, the words sweet but her smile just a shade too tight. Emily didn't notice it then. She only felt the warmth of achievement, the sense that all her sacrifices had finally meant something. By the next morning, Rachel was already treating her differently. Emily brushed it off at first, the clipped tone in meetings, the sudden habit of correcting her in front of others. The way Rachel's once friendly texts had turned into passive-aggressive one-liners. They had started in the same department, grown close through shared late nights and coffee breaks. But now there was a wall between them, one built not of misunderstanding, but of jealousy. 2 weeks later, small things began to go wrong. An important report went missing from the shared drive. A client called, confused about an invoice Emily had supposedly approved. Rachel was always nearby, ready with sympathetic eyes and a soft, "Don't worry, I'll help you fix it." Emily wanted to believe it was coincidence. But then one night, while reviewing her emails at home, she found a message she had never sent, one addressed to a supplier, requesting a personal discount in exchange for preferred placement in the next quarter's contracts. Her stomach twisted. The email had her signature, her tone, her name, but it wasn't her. She spent half the night on the phone with IT trying to trace the source. The answer came with a chill. The email had been sent from her account, but from an office computer logged in after hours. Only 3 people had keycard access at that time. Emily, her supervisor, and Rachel Monroe. The next morning, HR called her in. "Emily," her manager said, voice tight, "we received a report alleging financial misconduct. It's been brought to our attention that you've been contacting vendors for personal gain. We've suspended your account pending an internal audit." The words didn't feel real. "That's not true," she said. "Someone must have—" He held up a hand. "Until we can verify that, you're on paid leave. Please don't contact any clients or employees in the meantime." Rachel was waiting outside the office when she came out, a cup of coffee in hand, and concern painted perfectly across her face. What's going on? Are you okay?" Emily's throat tightened. "Someone's trying to frame me." Rachel's eyes widened. "Too much." "Oh my God. That's awful." She reached out, squeezing Emily's arm. "You know you can tell me anything, right?" Emily nodded weakly, unaware that the person comforting her was the same one who had written the fake emails. Days turned into weeks. The rumors spread fast. People whispering in break rooms, clients sending cautious messages, her inbox filling with questions she couldn't answer. The company froze her accounts. Rachel, meanwhile, was thriving. She was seen in meetings with senior management, suggesting ways to tighten oversight. She took on Emily's projects temporarily, according to her. She even started using phrases Emily had coined in her presentations. It wasn't until Emily went to pack her things that she saw the pattern clearly. Rachel had always wanted the promotion. Rachel had always wanted the power. And Rachel was willing to destroy anyone to get it. But what Rachel didn't count on was that Emily wasn't as alone as she thought. When Emily handed over her office keycard, the security guard leaned in and whispered quietly, "You didn't hear this from me, but there's something you might want to see on the access logs." Emily froze. "What do you mean?" He slid her a small printout. "Night of March 12th, someone used your badge, twice." Her badge had been in her purse at home that night. Emily looked up at him, her pulse pounding. "Who used it?" He hesitated. "Same access time, 2 seconds apart. The first scan was yours. The second," he tapped the line, "was cloned. Under Rachel Monroe." Emily felt her breath leave her chest. She had been set up, and for the first time, she stopped feeling afraid. She started feeling angry. That night, as she sat in her car, staring at the fake email chain, Emily opened a new folder on her laptop and typed 2 words in the title bar: Project Karma. The glow from Emily's laptop screen painted the room in a cold blue haze. It was past midnight, but her mind was awake, sharp, alive, running on pure adrenaline. For the first time in weeks, she wasn't crying or replaying her humiliation. She was planning. The file name on her desktop read Project Karma. Inside it, screenshots, timestamps, security logs, vendor records, and every piece of digital proof she could gather without violating company policy. She had learned something in her years of corporate survival. If someone was going to play dirty, you beat them with documentation. She dug through everything: server logs, archived emails, keycard reports. She found tiny inconsistencies. Access times that didn't match Rachel's claimed hours, client messages rewritten after approval, file edits done seconds apart from her own logins. Rachel had been cloning her credentials and adjusting metadata, leaving Emily's digital fingerprint on every forgery. But Emily had one advantage. She knew how Rachel thought. They'd been friends once. The kind of friends who finished each other's sentences and stayed late brainstorming ideas. Emily remembered Rachel's habits, the shortcuts she used, the passwords she recycled, even the private nickname she gave to her work folders. By 3 a.m., she had something. Buried inside a shared company archive, hidden under a mislabeled folder titled Archive Old, was a draft document Rachel had forgotten to delete. It was the original version of the fake vendor email. Same structure, same formatting, but unsigned. Emily's pulse quickened. She saved it, exported it, and encrypted it to a private drive. Then she reached for her phone. "Carla, it's me," she whispered when her best friend answered groggily. "I need a favor. I need someone who knows cybersecurity." Carla sighed.
It's 3 in the morning, I know.
"But I think I can prove Rachel set me up. I just need to make it airtight." By morning, Emily sat across from Carla's cousin, Darren, in a tiny co-working office surrounded by glowing monitors. He was a digital forensics consultant, quiet, methodical, and exactly the kind of person who got results without asking too many questions. He scrolled through Emily's data, eyes narrowing as lines of code flickered by. "She didn't just spoof your account," he said finally. "She cloned your entire employee profile. See this hash? It's identical to yours except for the sequence at the end. That's what creates a duplicate access ID. She probably had help." "Help?" "Yeah," Darren said. "Someone from IT, or at least someone who knew how to trick the system." Emily frowned. "Can we trace it?" He smiled faintly. "Already did. Every login that used your credentials outside of your working hours came from the same device, Rachel's workstation. You've got her dead to rights. Emily's chest tightened with relief and rage. So she did it. All of it, Darren nodded. And she's sloppy. Left a digital footprint all over. If you bring this to HR, they'll have to investigate. But Emily didn't want HR, not yet. She wanted Rachel to feel what she had felt. Helpless, cornered, watched. She wanted the truth to come out publicly. Quiet revenge wasn't enough. She wanted karma, not payback. 2 days later, Emily showed up at the office under the pretense of returning company property. People stared. Conversations hushed when she passed. Rachel greeted her with the same fake sympathy, arms crossed and voice dripping sweetness. How are you holding up? Emily smiled. Better than you think. Rachel tilted her head. You're strong. I knew you'd land on your feet. Funny, Emily said softly. I could say the same about you. Must be exhausting keeping up appearances. Rachel blinked. Excuse me? But before Emily could say more, HR appeared. Emily, can we talk in the conference room for a moment? Inside, the HR director's tone was formal. We received a new anonymous submission with detailed evidence regarding the misconduct claims. It's quite thorough. Do you know anything about it? Emily hid a small smile. No, she said. But I'd be happy to answer any questions you have. The HR director nodded. We'll be conducting a full forensic audit. Please be available for a follow-up meeting. As Emily left the room, Rachel's gaze followed her from across the hall, suspicion flickering behind her perfect smile. That night, Emily received a call from Darren. They pulled her system logs, he said. Guess what? She panicked, tried deleting her hard drive. Emily closed her eyes, exhaling. And she didn't realize they keep backups of everything on the server. They're reconstructing it now. You'll get your name back soon. Emily hung up and stared out the window. Below her, the city lights blurred into golden rivers of motion. For the first time in months, she didn't feel powerless. Rachel had taken her reputation, her peace, her career, but Emily had something far stronger now, evidence, and the next step would turn that evidence into justice. The next morning, Emily's phone buzzed with a new message, this time from Rachel herself. We need to talk privately before things get out of control. Emily read the message 3 times, her pulse steady but her mind racing. We need to talk privately before things get out of control. It wasn't an apology. It was fear, the kind of fear that creeps in when the walls start closing around someone who thought they were untouchable. For a moment, she considered ignoring it. Rachel deserved to squirm, but curiosity and strategy won out. Fine. 6 p.m., the old cafe near the office. Come alone. When Emily arrived, the air outside was heavy with the smell of rain. The cafe was nearly empty, its warm light flickering across glass windows, fogged from the drizzle. Rachel was already there, sitting in the corner with a latte she hadn't touched. Her usual confidence was gone, replaced by a stiffness in her shoulders, a tightness around her eyes. Thanks for coming, Rachel said quietly. Emily sat opposite her, folding her hands. You said it was important. Rachel leaned forward, her voice trembling just enough to sound rehearsed. Look, I don't know what you think you have, but this is getting out of hand. HR is sniffing around. IT's pulling logs. This could ruin both of us. Both of us, Emily said softly. Rachel, the only one who forged documents, logged into my account and tried to destroy my career, was you. Rachel's eyes flickered, a flash of guilt, quickly buried. You don't understand. They were already planning to cut you. I just sped it up. It wasn't personal. Emily's voice hardened. You accused me of embezzlement. You let them drag my name through mud for months. And you think that's not personal? Rachel exhaled, her hands trembling. You were always one step ahead of me. Everyone loved you. I worked twice as hard for half the credit. I just wanted a chance. You didn't want a chance, Emily said, leaning forward. You wanted my life. Silence. The hum of the espresso machine filled the space between them. Rachel's eyes darted to the window, then back. If you go through with this, if you hand over whatever you found, it's not just me who'll go down. I had help. Emily froze. Help? Rachel nodded, glancing around the cafe. Someone in IT. He gave me your access credentials, said he could make the changes without anyone noticing. He wanted a cut from the fake vendor accounts. But when things started to spiral, he panicked. He's the one who sent the anonymous tip to HR. Emily blinked. So the same person who helped you turned you in. Rachel swallowed hard. Yes, he's covering himself. If this goes public, he'll make it sound like it was all me. Emily leaned back, her anger cooling into calculation. Then maybe you should tell the truth while you still can. Rachel's jaw tightened. And let them destroy me? I'd lose everything. Emily's expression softened just barely. You already did. She stood up to leave, but Rachel grabbed her wrist. Emily, please. You could fix this. You could tell them it was a misunderstanding, that I was manipulated. You don't have to. Emily pulled her hand free, calm and steady. Rachel, the only person you manipulated was yourself. You built this lie brick by brick. I'm just not standing under it anymore. She turned and walked out into the rain, her reflection rippling in puddles beneath the streetlights. That night, Darren called again. The audit's almost finished. They found something new, an offshore account tied to both Rachel and a former IT administrator named Tyler Grant. Emily's heartbeat quickened. So Rachel was telling the truth about him. Partly, Darren said. But get this, the tip to HR didn't come from Tyler. It came from a burner email traced to Rachel herself. She reported you, then reported herself anonymously later to look innocent when it blew up. Emily stared at her phone, speechless. She set me up twice. She's desperate, Darren said. And desperate people make mistakes. The DA's office is reviewing the company's complaint. If you're willing to cooperate, they'll open a formal investigation. Emily closed her eyes. She could almost feel the storm settling, the chaos finally turning into clarity. I'm ready, she said. 2 days later, Rachel was escorted out of the office in front of everyone. Her hair was pulled back tight, her face pale and blank. Emily watched from across the lobby, not out of satisfaction, but out of disbelief that it was finally over, as security led Rachel past her. Their eyes met for the last time. Rachel whispered, barely audible. You win. Emily shook her head. No, she said quietly. Truth did. That night, a news notification appeared on Emily's phone. Corporate fraud investigation expands, internal whistleblower revealed. Beneath the headline, a photo of Rachel and Tyler Grant, both handcuffed, both exposed. The morning after the arrests, the world finally felt quiet again. For the first time in nearly a year, Emily woke up without dread sitting heavy on her chest. The sunlight poured through the blinds, and for a brief, fragile moment, she let herself breathe. Her phone buzzed on the nightstand, dozens of messages from co-workers, old friends, even clients she hadn't heard from since the scandal broke. Most were short, almost identical. I'm so sorry, Emily. We all know the truth now. You didn't deserve any of it. You were right. She scrolled past them until one message stopped her cold. Can we talk? Tyler Grant. Her stomach turned. The name still carried the echo of Rachel's lies. But part of her needed to know the full story, not for revenge, but for closure. She met him that afternoon at a park near the courthouse, where the world seemed strangely peaceful for the gravity of what they were about to discuss. Tyler looked smaller in person than she remembered, tired, eyes sunken, guilt hanging off him like a second skin. Thank you for coming, he said quietly. I almost didn't, she replied. I wouldn't blame you. He sighed, running a hand over his face. Rachel came to me months before the promotion. She said she wanted to level the playing field. I didn't know what she meant at first. She asked for access to check her own performance data. I believed her. But once she had it, she changed the logs, copied your ID. When I realized what she'd done, I panicked. Why didn't you stop her? I tried, he said, voice cracking. But she threatened to expose me for helping. I thought if I stayed quiet, it would fade. Then when she turned on me too, I sent that anonymous tip to HR. I thought maybe the truth would come out on its own. Emily's eyes hardened. You didn't think about the person whose life was burning down while you stayed quiet, he nodded, shame washing over him. You're right. I didn't. I was a coward. She studied him for a long moment. You should tell that to the investigators. Not to me, he nodded again, eyes glistening. I already did. I'm cooperating. I gave them everything. Emails, passwords, the fake accounts. They said she's looking at years in prison. Emily exhaled, the air shaking from her lungs. Then maybe there's finally an end to this. 2 weeks later, the company held a press conference. The HR director stood at the podium, reading from a prepared statement. After a full forensic review, we have confirmed that former employees Rachel Monroe and Tyler Grant orchestrated a coordinated scheme of corporate fraud and defamation. Emily Davis has been fully cleared of all allegations and reinstated with full honors. Applause filled the room, but Emily barely heard it. She stood still, hands clasped, her gaze unfocused. The words felt surreal. Months ago, she was fighting to prove her innocence in silence. Now the entire city knew the truth. Afterward, her old supervisor approached her. Emily, I can't imagine what you went through. If you're open to it, we'd like to offer you your position back, or even something higher. Emily smiled politely. Thank you. But I think I've outgrown this place, he blinked. You're sure? She nodded. I learned something here I'll never forget. Sometimes the hardest thing to rebuild isn't your career, it's your peace. And that's something I can't find in the same walls where I was broken. He hesitated, then extended his hand. Whatever you do next, you'll be unstoppable. That evening, Emily sat in her apartment, the same small space that had seen her cry herself to sleep, whisper prayers for justice, and build Project Karma from scratch. She looked at her laptop and opened the file one last time. Inside were the same screenshots, logs, and folders that had once been her lifeline. She selected them all and hit delete. For the first time, it didn't feel like erasing the past. It felt like setting it free. Her phone buzzed again, a message from Carla. They're running your story on the local news tonight. The segment's called The Woman Who Fought Back. Emily smiled faintly. She turned off the lights, opened her balcony door, and stepped outside. The city pulsed beneath her, alive, unpredictable, but somehow finally on her side. The rain began to fall again, soft and steady. She whispered into the night, "You can try to ruin me, but I don't break. I rebuild." The next morning, she opened an email from a law firm that had followed her story. Ms. Davis, we'd like to offer you a position with our corporate ethics division. We believe your experience can help us protect others from what you endured. The message from the law firm glowed on Emily's laptop screen long after she'd finished reading it. Corporate Ethics Division. 2 years ago, those words would have meant little more than a corporate formality to her. Now, they meant purpose. A way to turn pain into something that could protect others. She reread the email, noticing the final line. We're building a new department focused on corporate transparency and whistleblower protection. We believe your experience gives you a perspective no degree can teach. Her throat tightened. For months, she had been fighting just to survive, to breathe through the suffocating weight of humiliation. Now someone wanted her not in spite of what she'd been through, but because of it. Emily replied simply, "I'm interested. Let's talk." 2 weeks later, she walked into the firm's glass tower. High ceilings, quiet halls, a far cry from the office where her downfall had begun. The managing partner, a sharp but kind woman named Alicia Park, greeted her in the lobby. "I read everything," Alicia said, shaking her hand. "You didn't just survive a scandal. You dissected it, documented it, and built your own forensic case. That's the kind of precision and resilience we need here." Emily smiled faintly. "I didn't plan to be a case study." Alicia smiled back. "No one does, but life tends to write its own resumes, doesn't it?" She led Emily through the office, explaining the firm's new initiative, an internal task force dedicated to identifying and exposing unethical practices in corporations. "We need someone who understands not just the rules," Alicia said, "but what happens when they're broken?" Emily accepted the position that day. Her first weeks were a blur of case files, interviews, and long conversations with victims, who sounded heartbreakingly familiar. Employees silenced by fear, women targeted for speaking up, whistleblowers painted as villains. Every time she spoke with one, she heard a version of herself in their stories, the trembling in their voices, the quiet desperation for someone to believe them. And every time she finished a call, she made sure to tell them what she once needed to hear. You are not crazy. You are not overreacting, and the truth will outlive the lies. One Friday evening, as she packed her things, Alicia appeared at her door. "You've been requested to speak at the National Corporate Integrity Summit next month," she said. "They want you to share your story," Emily blinked. "Me?" "You," Alicia confirmed. "You've become the face of what rebuilding looks like. People need to see that justice doesn't end in a courtroom. It continues in the choices we make after." That night, as Emily sat at her desk preparing her speech, she pulled out the small flash drive Darren had given her months ago, the one containing every file from Project Karma. She'd deleted her local copies, but he'd insisted she keep a clean, encrypted archive. "Just in case," he'd said. She looked at it for a long time before finally slipping it into a drawer. The evidence that once defined her life no longer owned her. She had something stronger now, credibility built not on fear, but on truth. The day of the summit arrived under a clear blue sky. The conference hall was vast, filled with cameras, CEOs, and advocates. Emily waited backstage, her hands calm at her sides. A year ago, she had walked into a courtroom trembling. Today, she would walk onto a stage. When her name was announced, the applause rolled through the room like a wave. She stepped up to the podium, smiled, and began. "I used to think justice was something other people handed to you," she said. "A verdict, a decision, a single moment. But real justice isn't given. It's built piece by piece by the people who refuse to stay silent." She paused, letting the silence breathe. "I was betrayed by someone I trusted. I was humiliated, lied about, and nearly erased. But I learned something no title or paycheck could teach me, that truth has patience. It waits quietly until the noise dies down, and then it stands up." The audience was still. Some nodded, some wiped tears. She smiled faintly. "So if you ever find yourself where I was, standing in the ruins of what someone tried to destroy, remember this: ruins are just foundations waiting for something stronger." After the speech, reporters approached, people thanked her, and old wounds felt like distant scars. As she left the building, she spotted a familiar figure waiting by the exit, Detective Alvarez from the fraud case. "I heard the speech," Alvarez said. "You've come a long way, Emily." Emily smiled. "You helped me get here." The detective shook her head. "No, you helped yourself. We just gave truth the space to catch up." That night, Emily stood by her apartment window, city lights flickering below. She thought of Rachel, not with hate but with closure. Some people are lessons, she realized. Others are turning points, and she was both. As she turned off the lights, her phone buzzed, a message from an unknown number. "Ms. Davis, this is a journalist from the New York Ledger. We're investigating corporate retaliation cases and believe your story is just the beginning. Would you be willing to help expose something bigger?" The message stayed on Emily's screen long after she'd read it. "We believe your story is just the beginning." She'd spent months rebuilding her life, finally finding peace in purpose. But something about that message pulled at the same quiet instinct that had driven her to uncover Rachel's lies. That sense that behind every single injustice she'd survived, there were hundreds more buried in silence. She typed back, "I'll listen." The reply came almost instantly. "Meet me tomorrow, 10 a.m. at the Ledger offices. Ask for Daniel Reeves." The next morning, Emily arrived at the newspaper's downtown headquarters. The building wasn't flashy. Grey brick, old elevators, the faint smell of ink and coffee. It was a place built on truth, she thought. the kind of place that still believed facts could change the world. Daniel Reeves greeted her in the lobby. He was tall, mid-40s, with the weary confidence of someone who'd seen too many cover-ups. He shook her hand firmly. "Emily Davis," he said with a smile that wasn't performative, just respectful. "You've been busy rebuilding." She smiled faintly. "Trying to." They sat across from each other in a small meeting room. Daniel slid a folder across the table. "We're investigating a network of corporate retaliation cases. People silenced after exposing corruption. Someone sent us a list of names, all connected to your old company. And your case was the first." Emily flipped through the pages. Names, dates, settlements, non-disclosure agreements. Familiar patterns jumped out. Accusations buried, employees dismissed, evidence sealed. Her stomach twisted. "They covered up everything," Daniel nodded. "Yours was the one they couldn't bury. You set a precedent, Emily. You proved that when someone fights back publicly, it makes it harder for them to hide. That's why we need you, not just as a source, but as a partner." She looked up. "Partner? We want to build a joint project, investigative and advocacy-based. Your experience, our resources. Together, we can expose how corporate systems punish whistleblowers. We can give voices like yours a platform." The words hit her like an echo of her own mission. Justice Found Consulting had started as a one-woman operation. Now it could evolve into something bigger, something that could actually change things. She exhaled slowly. "If we do this," she said, "we don't just tell stories. We protect people while they're still living them." Daniel smiled. "Exactly." That night, Emily sat at her desk, staring at the faint city glow outside her window. She thought of every step that had brought her here, the lies, the humiliation, the trial. The nights she'd cried herself to sleep, convinced her life was over, and then she thought of every person who had reached out after her story aired. The emails, the letters, the quiet voices whispering, "You gave me hope." Maybe this was what justice was supposed to look like. Not one person winning, but many finding the courage to stand up because someone else did first. She opened her laptop and created a new folder. Project Justice Found, Phase 2. Weeks turned into months. Together with Daniel and Alicia, Emily built a coalition. Lawyers, journalists, victims, advocates. They began publishing stories, accountants exposing fraud, nurses reporting unsafe practices, employees revealing toxic workplace abuse. Each story was vetted, documented, and, for the first time, protected. Companies could no longer silence whistleblowers with NDAs and fear. Emily became a face of accountability, the quiet, calm force that corporations could no longer intimidate. In interviews, when people asked what drove her, she always said the same thing: "I don't fight for revenge. I fight so no one else has to go through what I did." One afternoon, months later, she received a letter with no return address. Inside was a single sheet of paper, handwritten, shaky, familiar. "I've had a lot of time to think. You were right. I destroyed you because I couldn't be you. I'm sorry." For a long moment she stared at it. No anger, no pity, just closure. She folded the note carefully, slipped it into a drawer and whispered, "I forgive you." But forgiveness doesn't erase justice. A year to the day after her first speech, Emily stood once again at a podium, this time at the United Nations Annual Summit on Business Ethics. The crowd was larger, global. Her voice was steady, her eyes bright. "Justice isn't just about punishment," she said. "It's about restoration, rebuilding what corruption tries to erase. Trust, dignity, truth. We can't stop every act of betrayal, but we can make sure it never wins." The audience rose in applause. Cameras flashed. As she stepped off stage, Daniel caught up to her, smiling. "You know," he said, "you started all of this." Emily shook her head, looking out toward the sea of lights and faces. "No," she said softly. "Justice did." That night she walked alone through the quiet city streets. The rain had started again, soft, cleansing, endless. She tilted her face toward the sky and closed her eyes. The woman who once stood in the rain with nothing was gone. The woman standing there now had everything that mattered: peace, purpose, and justice found. Sometimes the ones who smile at you are the ones holding the knife. They call it friendship, until envy turns it into betrayal. Emily lost everything, her career, her reputation, her peace, because someone decided her success was too much to bear. But the truth doesn't die quietly. It waits, it watches, and when the lies fall apart, it rises, because justice doesn't always wear a badge or sit behind a bench. Sometimes it looks like a woman who refused to stay silent, a woman who rebuilt from the ruins and made her name mean something again. So if you've ever been broken by someone who thought they could bury you, remember this: you are not the end of your story. You are the comeback they never saw coming, because no matter how long it takes, justice always finds its way.